right, it looks like just about everybody has joined us from the weight room. We'll continue to let everybody in one by one. My name's Jay Esposito. I'm just going to do a couple quick introductory announcements before we jump into today's program, but I am the Assistant Dean for Enrollment Management here at Drexel Klein School of Law. I have had the pleasure of getting to meet so many of you on Zoom, by phone, in person. I am so thrilled that we're just a few weeks away from the start of classes and orientation so that I can finally get to meet those of you that I've not gotten to meet in person in a few short weeks. Before we get started, many of you have received numerous reminders from us regarding the pre-orientation checklist. Thank you so much for your continued attention to the items on that checklist. I just wanted to shout out a few due dates that are coming up. First and foremost, many of you are already on top of this, your official final undergraduate transcript. If you're uncertain if you've satisfied this requirement, just email us at lawadmissions@drexel.edu. We will give you a status update. That's number one. Number two, you have immunization forms that are due on the 1st of August, and that's through the Office of Counseling and Health. So it's not administered through our office here in admissions. We can get you in touch with them, but if you have questions, you should reach out to them directly. Those forms are due on August 1st. So please contact them with your questions. You also have your online photo submission for your Dragon Card student ID due on the 1st of August. And that's to ensure that your Dragon Card is ready for you when you come to the law school. So please get your photo ID submitted. The links for both the immunization form and the online photo submission are on the pre-orientation checklist, and we'll get those in the chat for you tonight. You have formally been registered for fall classes. As many of you are well aware, bills are starting to get issued. You are in your classes. So if you've not yet been in touch with Mary D. Rivera, who is our manager of law school financial aid, we're going to throw Mary's contact information into the chat. Please make sure you reach out to her. I happen to have met with her earlier today. She said that nearly all of you have submitted your master promissory notes and other required documents. So you're doing great there. Please contact Mary to confirm that you're all set with all things financial aid and billing. Just in the lead up to classes, you want to make sure all of that's taken care of. And last but not least, we are going to be hosting our final event of the summer. It's our pre-fall mixer. It's co-hosted with Dive In, which many of you know is Drexel Klein School of Law's Diversity and Inclusion Initiative. Many of our student affinity groups are involved in the planning and execution of that event. In the past, we've seen students from Black Law Student Association, Asian and Pacific American Law Student Association. We've had students from Middle Eastern Law School Student Association. We've had students from Outlaw, which is our LGBTQIA+ student board. That's on Thursday, the 8th of August. We're going to be posting that to your admitted student portal. It's not there yet, but it should be within the next couple of days, and you're going to get an email invite to that event. It's Thursday, the 8th at 5 p.m. And especially if you're brand new to Philly, if you just moved here for law school, or if you're coming in the next few days, few weeks, it's a really great opportunity to get to meet some of your fellow 1L incoming students, as well as some of our 2L and 3L students that'll be here for the pre-fall mixer. It'll be hosted here at the law school. We will get that information out to you, but save that date, August 8th, and that's at 5 p.m. So without further ado, I want to quickly pass it off to each of my folks, my colleagues here on the admissions team, who will introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with tonight's event. Ina, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ina Halili. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Klein. It's been really nice connecting with some of you already and looking forward to seeing you in person in just a few weeks.
Thanks, Ina. Jacqueline.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jacqueline Marsh, Assistant Director of Admissions. I will agree use the sentiments of Jay and Ina, and it's been great to connect with some of you. It's so nice to see familiar names and faces, and we're looking forward to seeing you all very soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Jacqueline. And Anya, are you out there?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Anya. I'm also the Assistant Director of Admissions here, and I am very excited to be here with you all and looking forward to meeting you soon.
Fabulous. Thank you all so much. Again, we're super excited to meet you all in a few short weeks, but tonight's session is focused on your 1L classes and your 1L professors. So we're going to take this first section of tonight's session to introduce you to your 1L faculty members. Let them have a moment to tell you a little bit about what you can expect in their classes. You can ask any questions that you have of them about their classes, their teaching methods, things like this. We'll go through each of your 1L classes, and then we're going to pass the mic over to Dean Teresa Gallo and Dean Kevin Oates from our Student Affairs team so that they can talk about your pre-orientation checklist, orientation week, your fall schedule. You'll have ample time to ask lots of questions there. If you feel most comfortable throwing your questions into the chat, please do that at any time. If you prefer, you can send the questions directly to me and I will ask those on your behalf. We are going to pass the mic off to our first professor, Robert Field, who's going to be teaching your torts class. Professor Field?
Thank you, and welcome to all of you. I'm one of 3 professors teaching torts. As you probably know, or you certainly will know in about a month, torts is the area of law that deals with civil wrongs, a wrong that one person or entity commits against another. It's not criminal. You don't go to jail or generally pay a fine, but you have to make a compensation to the person you've harmed. And it could be everything from the harm in an auto accident if you run a stop sign, to the harm from not shoveling your sidewalk when it snows and someone slips and falls, to more unusual kinds of events. A book falls out of a window and hits a pedestrian. You make a loud noise and it startles a neighbor. So how does the law handle those? Torts has a lot of sort of short cases. And I think what can be fun about it is they're little stories, they're little vignettes. Usually unusual, otherwise they wouldn't have made it into a case book as an appeals court decision. So we will read those little stories. Often you'll read them and get a sense that you think one side is right or another, and then you'll see how the law handles it, which may not be exactly the way you would like to see the outcome, but it is systematic and it shows the application of deeper principles. And I think torts is an excellent way to begin to learn about the kind of critical thinking that the law requires, sort of systematically analyzing situations and coming to a decision that takes account of all sides. My area of expertise is health law. I teach in the health law program. I also spend almost half my time teaching at the public health school, a course on public health law. So I'm happy to speak with any of you who might be interested about our health law concentration, where you can focus on that area, or if you're ambitious, our joint program where you can actually get a master's in public health at the same time you're getting the law degree. So welcome, and I look forward to meeting about a third of you in a few weeks.
Thank you, Professor Field. I've got some questions here from some students that I'll just throw at you and you can give us your thoughts.
Sure.
First and foremost, how much time on average would you say that a student is spending studying for your course, working on your course, if you had to venture in this?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. You should probably ask a student from last year. But the rule of thumb is about 2 hours of prep for every hour of actual class time. So the course has about 4 hours of class time a week. I think 8 to 10 hours. From my experience and the experience of a lot of students, that time goes down over the course of the semester as you get used to reading cases and can focus on the important elements.
Excellent, thanks. And the one question I'm going to throw to you and to your colleagues this evening, if you could go back and give yourself some advice for your first 1L semester, what would that be?
Calm down. Just assume that a lot isn't going to make sense for a while, and it's like learning a new language. In fact, a lot of it is learning a new language. It will become easier as time goes by, and just focus on trying to pick out the important points, Because one of the things you'll learn throughout law school and really in a career as a lawyer is how to separate the noise from the signal, and what it is that's important, what you need to know, as opposed to all the various aspects and other facts that are thrown into a situation.
Thanks, Professor Field. We hear that a lot, actually, from quite a few faculty members, and even when I visit other law schools, that law school, it's often like learning a new language. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. We are going to pass the mic over to Professor Claire Coleman. Professor Coleman will be teaching your legal methods class. Professor Coleman?
Hi, everybody. I am one of several teachers who teaches legal methods, several professors who teach legal methods. Legal methods is our legal research, writing, and analysis class, but I will actually meet all of you the first day of orientation on August 12th when I teach you about how to read a case and how to brief a case to give you some foundation for everything else you're going to do throughout your years in law school. I am also the school's writing specialist, so even if I'm not your legal methods professor, if you have questions about your writing, you can come to me. But legal methods focuses in the first semester writing 2 different predictive legal memos. On the first legal memo, we'll give you the research, so all you have to do is read the cases. Unlike the cases in torts that Professor Field was just talking about, we give you unedited cases. So you have to learn to read discriminatorily so you can see what's the important information and what's the unimportant information. On the second memo, for the second memo, you will do the research. We will be giving you training in the databases of Westlaw and Lexis so you can learn how to find the law. Reading about the law, researching the law, and writing about the law are the kinds of things that you will do in your first jobs, which you will have your first legal job after your first year. I expect all of you will be clerking for judges or working in some aspect of the law. So the things we teach you in legal methods will be really beneficial. The time spent on the course really varies. In the first week or two, it's not as much reading as you might get in your torts or contracts or civil procedure courses. Then as you start reading the research and writing the memos, the time becomes more. So I would say there's more time spent outside of the class doing the research and writing toward the middle and the end of the semester. But I abide by Professor Field's rule of thumb that 2 to 3 hours of preparation for each hour of class is a good thing to budget and to work into your schedule. If I could go back and give some advice to my 1L self, I would also tell myself to take it easy. Don't worry that a lot of things seem confusing. I would make sure that I stayed up on the reading. You don't want to get behind in the reading. And I would make sure I worked on my outlines of the course throughout the semester rather than saving reading period for doing my outlines. And the only common mistake I see people make in my class is waiting too long to start writing. The best writing is rewriting. So you want to go through multiple drafts before you hand in your final product.
Excellent. And that actually answers a portion of a question that I got specifically for you, Professor Coleman. Will the students have mini assignments to build up to a large final in legal methods?
Yes, they will. There's a draft of Memo 1, then the final version of Memo 1. Neither one of those are graded. Then there's a draft of Memo 2, which you get feedback on. Then there's the final Memo 2, which is the bulk of the grade. So there's 4 total assignments plus lots of mini assignments. So you'll have plenty of practice on this new skill of legal writing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your insights. We are going to jump over now to our contracts professor on our call this evening, and that is Professor Chapin Cimino. Chapin?
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. I think I'm one of 2 contracts professors, so I guess half of you will see me on August 19th. And I love to say, I've been teaching this class since 2006. So I've learned that I benefit from seriously low expectations. You know, people think about contracts, they think about something really dull, like forms with lines, blanks in the middle of them. And they think, how on the planet Earth is this going to be engaging in law school? And what I say, and you'll hear me say it again on August 19th, is I ask everybody, how many of you have entered into a decision that you later regretted, a commitment, in fact, that you later regretted and want out of? And everyone in the class will raise their hand. Yes, I too have entered a commitment that I later regretted and wanted out of. And I say, well, welcome to the class on regretted decisions. And all of a sudden, you know, people are sitting up because that's really what the course is all about. So I guess I was happy to hear Professor Field talk about torts cases as stories. I also think that cases are stories. And in fact, in my class, if you have me, you will learn a different way of preparing the notes on the cases that I ask you to read. They're also pretty short. They're pretty highly edited already. So unlike in legal methods, as Professor Coleman was saying, the cases are unedited. So you really have a lot more work to do to figure out what's important and what's not. In contracts, pretty much you can assume that if it's in the casebook, it's important. So that removes some of that guesswork. But I have a different way of teaching students to think about the information that's being presented in opinions, which again is very much a different language. But I pick up on that story theme, and I will teach my students about 3 different stories to look for in this bigger story that is the court opinion. And just to give you one example, going back to that idea of a regretted decision, all of you are human beings who all have your own experiences with entering commitments that you later wished you could get out of, or at least second guessed, or at least held your breath until it went okay, nothing went wrong. Okay, shoo, I didn't need to actually get out of it, but it was a little dicey. You'll see in the contracts cases that contracts are also made by people. Even when it's a corporation, there are people that are actually negotiating with other people. And these people are fallible. You know, they make mistakes. They can't see the future perfectly. They have motivations. They have desires. They have goals. And they're trying to work with each other to accomplish these motivations, accomplish these desires, to achieve their goals. And just like in torts, where something goes wrong, you know, the book that falls out of the window actually hits a pedestrian on the head. If it just fell to the ground, there would be no case. In contracts, you know, these clashes of motivations and desires and goals, something goes wrong that nobody foresaw, and crap, somebody wants out, somebody else doesn't want to let them out. You know, it remains a good deal for somebody and a bad deal for somebody else. And then the law has to figure out, well, what do we do? Do we let them out or not? And then you will see that contracts is all about how all the questions courts ask in evaluating that bigger question, really. And the one thing that makes contracts different than the other classes you'll have your whole first year, and one reason why contracts can actually get a little bit intense in class, is that it's the one obligation that's voluntary, right? So really the law that applies to 2 parties that make a commitment to each other is whatever the parties choose. It's whatever they write in this thing called a contract that they agree to be bound to. And it's only when something goes wrong that then these background rules that you think of as rules of law, you know, that are, but they're really background, and they come into play only when the party's voluntary obligation kind of breaks down. Something went wrong again that they didn't think about. So it's not in the rules that they agreed to themselves. But every other course that you have your first year, torts is not voluntary. You can kind of contract out of a little bit of it, but we'll see that in contracts. You won't, I think, really see that in torts. Property, not voluntary. Crim law, decidedly not voluntary. You know, nothing else that you encounter your first year has this element of voluntariness to it. So you'll see that the rules are designed with a little bit of a look toward autonomy in it. It's not just freedom to make deals, but freedom from deals that you didn't really think you made. So that's a little bit about the course and my specific approach. Again, this 3 narratives approach, I gave you the example of one of the stories, the people story. Who are these people? What were their motivations? Had they known each other before? Had they ever worked together before? You know, that kind of thing. And we'll talk about the other stories that are embedded in this bigger story in class.
Wonderful. You sold me on it. I'm taking your class. I'm going to be there in the back. If you could tell us, Professor Cimino,
Yeah.
give yourself some advice. You're about to start your 1L. You're 3 weeks away. What do you do? What would you tell yourself to do?
I'm going to say 2 things. One is a slight echo of what, well, not a slight echo, it's a kind of echo on what Professor Coleman and Professor Field said, but I'll phrase it as trust the process, which includes trusting yourself as a participant in the process. You've been selected because we know you can do it. Therefore, you needn't doubt yourself. If you think you might doubt yourself, write down Professor Cimino said in the webinar on July 23rd, no need to doubt myself, and tack it up above your computer. You're here for a reason. And when people start to get insecure and start doubting themselves, they start to look for other things to doubt and ways to project out their doubt. You know, they start to doubt the professor, they start to doubt their classmates, you know, they start to doubt the cases. And all of that doubt just kind of drags us all down. So my advice would be trust the process. Do whatever you need to do to guard your own sense of faith in yourself so that those nagging insecurities, which of course you will feel, but so that we can work on them together and not kind of project them out onto everybody and everything else, which just kind of makes everything harder. And then I guess the other thing I would say, which really probably won't be an issue for you so much your first semester, but it might for some of you, is you gotta, and this was not applicable when I was a 1L, but you gotta really get serious about your own attention span. Obviously, you're the digital generation, right? And we were not, and law is not. You know, law has been around for millennia. It's hard, it's dense. You got to read a lot. You have to be able to pay attention to things that, trusting the process, you're not exactly sure why they're exciting or useful or whatever. And, you know, I would, if I had an Apple Watch, I would not wear it to class if I were you, because when you're learning a new language, you know, getting texts in a different language, you know, about something that doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing in class is not going to help you learn that language. We cannot do that for you. That's really on you. So I guess that's advice that if I were a 1L in 2024, knowing what I know with all my experience, I would give myself.
Super helpful. Thank you so much, Professor, for your words of wisdom. We appreciate it. Last but not least, we are going to pass it over to Professor Brett Asbury, who is going to be teaching your civil procedure. Professor Asbury?
Hey, thanks and welcome everyone. So like contracts, there'll be 2 sections of civil procedure this fall. There are a lot of you in each section, and I'm not sure why there are only 2 sections and not 3, but it is what it is, and it'll go well. I think unlike torts and unlike contracts, we are concerned less with stories in civil procedure. The stories matter, they're the backdrop, but what we focus on is the mechanics of how you vindicate your rights when there's a wrong committed to you on the civil side. So again, like Professor Cimino said, we're not talking criminal, we're talking civil. That means we're talking for about money damages, maybe injunctive relief or something else, but we're not trying to put anyone in jail. So for example, if, let me see, if Chanel Robinson and Darren Kwan, you're only on my screen, I'm not picking you out or singling any of you out, but let's say Chanel has that book on her windowsill and it falls on Darren's head. How does Darren vindicate that right? Right? Can you bring that case against Chanel? Sure, depending on the damages. Can you bring it in state court or can you bring it in federal court? That turns on many other sub-factors. Can you bring it in state court in Pennsylvania or state court in New Jersey or state court in Wisconsin? That turns on any number of other factors. All those questions are questions that need to be answered time and time again with respect to how you pursue your litigation. You can't just sue someone anywhere in any courthouse in the United States. I can't sue you for a property line dispute in Pennsylvania in a state court in Alaska. I can't do that. Where can I sue you, et cetera? That's a question that we're trying to figure out time and time again in this course. So once I determine, for example, that I can sue you in state court in Pennsylvania, the question is, in which state court in Pennsylvania may I sue you? That's something called venue. You got to figure that out. So it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. You figure this out, that out, that out, that out, that out. You single in on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 places, fora, where you can bring the suit, and then you can bring that suit there. Once you're there, though, it gets even further complicated with other things like personal jurisdiction. So even if I can, as a matter of right, sue you in state court in Wisconsin or federal court in Virginia, do those states have the authority to hear a suit against you in that state? Super complicated. We'll talk about it at great length, but that's what we talk about in this course. So again, the merits of the suit between Chanel and Darren don't really matter. What matters at this time is where can we bring the suit and how do we pursue it going forward. The backdrop for all this is these bigger questions about the structure of our government, about federalism, about how do we consider the relationship between the federal government and the state government, and within the state government among the different states. So for example, is it appropriate for a court in Hawaii, where I've never been, to adjudicate my rights? It probably isn't, but it all depends on my context, ties, or relations with that state. Similarly, is it fair for a federal court to adjudicate a dispute between me and you, et cetera, et cetera? So all those questions come up time and time again. Thematically, it's the same themes over and over again. And over the course of the semester, we sort of, it's like theme and variations of music, right? We have a theme that starts in the beginning and we do variations over and over throughout the semester. I always say, people don't love this course in law school, but it's super important. It creates the foundation for what you're going to do as a lawyer, at least on the litigation side. And once you get the concepts on a broad level, you can practice anywhere in the country and know what you're doing. Beyond that, we talk about, if you guys, Chanel and Darren, have this dispute, what if, is it Rita Mimone? Rita? If Rita has a claim against Darren as well, can't you bring that in that lawsuit? How do we join that dispute? Is it related, et cetera? If, for example, that dispute between the two of them is in federal court and Rita's case is a state court claim, can't you bring that in a federal court dispute, et cetera? So all sorts of permutations on that same question over and over again. On top of that, we have these questions about if we are having a citizen of Pennsylvania and a citizen of New Jersey in a dispute in a federal court in Wisconsin, what law applies to that dispute? Wisconsin law, Pennsylvania law, New Jersey law, federal law, all those questions come up time and again. And it's the type of stuff you don't want to think about and don't want to deal with, but you realize very quickly that someone has to decide these questions. And what we're doing in this course is not to resolve these things once and for all, but to get what the landscape is and to understand it. I've taught it, I'm 1 year shy of you, Professor Cimino. I came in 2007, right? So I'm not quite here as long as you, but I've done it for a long time. And I found that it really can be very rewarding. Students don't love the material, but I think they do love the learning process. And what I love about it is that from week 1 to week 14, you guys learn so much, and it's really astonishing to hear you talk back to me at the end of the semester of what you've learned and sort of show how smart and incredibly sophisticated you are after just 14 weeks. Let me see. I said stories don't matter that much, unfortunately. I think that the noise and signal point that Professor Field made is a really good one. I say separate the wheat from the chaff, but it's really the same point. It's really, really hard in the beginning. I don't assign a ton of reading, so I'm not going to say that you're going to be reading for hours and hours, but I would say if it's short and you don't get it, read it again. It's not going to kill you to read twice. I think reading closely is super important. I came from an English major background. I did close reading all through undergrad. I did it all through law school, and it served me really well. There aren't that many words to read, so read them and read them closely. If you don't get it, read them again. The biggest piece of advice I have is listen to your professors. We're all pretty, everyone on this call has been here a while. We have a certain way of doing things. We telegraph that quite a bit and indicate what we sort of value and what we don't value. If we say, don't worry about X, worry about Y, then do what we say. And more importantly, if you have questions, talk to us. I sit in my office every week by myself for hours and no one ever comes by. Maybe 1 or 2 people per week come by. My job is to sit and talk to you and listen to you and interact with you. You'll have dean scholars and it's easier to talk to them. And most people say, if I go to the professor and I talk to him or her, they'll think that I'm not smart and don't know what I'm doing. It's literally my job to talk to you and make sure you know it. If I'm not giving you the information that you need, you don't understand it, that's on me. So I want to make sure that you feel you're able to talk to us. And if you talk to us, you're going to find out what we like, what we care about, and what we prefer as far as the actual thing that ultimately matters, unfortunately, is how you do in the course. So overall, I had a great law school experience. I enjoyed it a tremendous amount. I think it's possible. I think you should too. Work hard, but also be strategic. And that to me means talk to us and figure out what we like and listen when we say and signal what we prefer on exams and in class and all that stuff. Sorry, one more thing is that it's easy for me. It's a very professional thing to say, but like talking in class matters a lot, not just to make my life easier, but also to make it so that you know that you're engaged. If you raise your hand and you say something and I'm like, excellent point. That's great. That means you know what's going on. If I raise your hand, I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. That means you might not be getting it. That means you should, either read further, talk to friends, talk to me, talk to Dean Scholars. But one way to check the temperature of how you're doing is to talk in class and see the reaction you get from the professor and from your peers. Excuse me. And ultimately, your success is in your hands. And I think by engaging in class and talking with us outside of class, it can go a really long way.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Professor Asbury. Really appreciate your insights. So we are doing perfect on time. I'm going to pass the mic over to Dean Gallo, who's going to talk about orientation. I have here in the chat, and I'm just going to put it in right now. This is your official fall 2024 pre-orientation checklist, your orientation schedule, your class schedule, all of the items that we will continue to talk about on this call and have it talked about a little bit at the start of this call. Save that link, bookmark that page. That's the one that you want to refer back to in the lead up to the classes starting. Dean Gallo?
I just want to say before Teresa starts that don't forget
Please.
international orientation begins August 5th.
Yes, excellent. And we will send out information to our students for that particular event. But if you have questions about it, reach out to us at Law Admissions. We'll get some invites out to you this week. All right, Dean Gallo, you want to
Yeah.
take
Hi,
the mic?
everybody. Yeah. Hi, I'm Teresa Gallo. I'm the Assistant Dean of Academic and Student Services. It's a really long title. You don't have to remember it. And you are also welcome to call me Teresa. So I basically oversee stuff like course scheduling, registration, exams, grades, lots of nuts and bolts stuff. I am also the disability liaison. So I just asked that if you have any questions about disability accommodations, because that does tend to come up in these calls, that you just email me separately. But I will also, so yeah, I oversee the Office of Student Affairs, and above me is Dean Kevin Oates, and I'm going to let him introduce himself before I move over to some other information. I don't see him on my screen, but probably when he turns on his microphone, I will see him.
I'm in fact here.
Yeah,
There you
he's
are.
here. I saw him out in the ether somewhere. He's there.
Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome. My name is Kevin Oates. I have a long title too, maybe as long as Dean Gallo. Senior Associate Dean of Student and Administration and Professor of Law, if you put that all together. So I wear a lot of hats, but I'll talk to you at orientation until you're sick of hearing from me. So I'll turn it back to Dean Gallo for now.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen to go probably to that exact link that Jay just shared. I can't see the chat or texts or anything while I'm sharing my screen. So Jacqueline or Dean Oates, just interrupt me if anything happens.
I got you. I'll keep an eye on it for sure.
Okay.
And anybody out there that does have questions, please continue to send those in. I've been getting a lot sent directly to me, so thanks for that.
All right, is everyone seeing that? Okay, perfect.
Yes, you're all set.
Okay, so hopefully you are all familiar with this page, the Admitted Student Portal. For right now, we're going to go to the traditional 3-year JD portion. The orientation schedule for the week of August 12th is here, as well as an explanation of the general 1L schedule. If you have picked up your Drexel accounts, as Jay said, that you're already registered for your classes, unless you've just recently joined us. So you can see your exact schedule. This is sort of the options of schedule that you might have, depending on which legal methods section you're in. And this is an explanatory letter. I'm just saying what your required courses are and what the other things on this schedule are. So one thing I'll talk about is professional fundamentals. This is the required workshop series where they talk about things like how to write a legal resume, how to do a cover letter. So it is a required workshop. It's not every single week. They start a little bit later, but that is a required program. Where is that on here? Right, that is a required program in your schedule, even though it's not credited and it's not going to show up on your schedule in the portal. You want to be aware of it. So it's at different times depending on your method section. These other yellow blocks here, the programming time, we set aside for things like library workshops, advising sessions, dive-in events, which is our diversity and inclusion initiatives, different things like that, information sessions. So some of those will be required, some of them will be optional, but we set aside time so that students are able to attend and they're not in classes. Academic skills is a really important workshop series. It's not required, but it goes over things like I think that's this spring is how to turn your memo into a writing sample, but things like how to manage your time, how to write an exam answer, just like academic skills, right? Highly recommended. And then these Dean Scholar blocks. Dean Scholars are students who've done really well in the class before, that the professors have chosen to either do extra practice or build on skills that you learned in class, answer questions. They're used differently depending on how the professor wants to use them. And some sections won't have Dean Scholars and some sections do. So just keep an eye out for that. Again, not required, but really, really helpful. And that's kind of the last thing on this schedule. I will mention one of the questions was how much time do people spend studying outside of class? The rule of thumb is there partially because the ABA, who accredits us, says that you have to have a minimum essentially of 2 hours of out of class effort for each hour of class. If you look at the credits that you're taking, that's about a 55-hour week, I think it comes out to in your first year. And as I think Dr. Field said, you're going to be a little slow at this in the beginning, right? So, and you're going to have all these other little like blocks on your schedule here, right? That you're going to want to go to. So what I like to, if anyone's asking me for my advice, I would say prepare your family, your partners, for how much work this is going to be, how much time it's going to be. I say that just so, you can manage the expectations of your loved one, because I've seen a lot of people get pulled by external forces. And this is a pretty hefty schedule. You are going to school full time. So I just want people to be aware of how much time it is. And then, as Professor Coleman said, international orientation starts August 5th. Those who are attending that will get separate information. International students also need to attend the full orientation starting August 12th, and that will be for everyone. That orientation schedule is up here. A little, let me zoom this in. Yeah. This is actually your first legal methods class. If you look at the academic calendar, this was a little confusing for some people. If you look at the academic calendar, it says that class meetings start during orientation. We just have this one legal methods class on Monday that Professor Coleman talked about, where you learn how to read and brief cases. And then there's some other events here. All of these events are mandatory unless it says optional. Usually the social events are optional, and community service is optional. We do have a sign up link here. We work with the Share Food program for our community service during orientation, packing boxes. It's really fun. It's a lot of work, but it's really fun. So please do sign up. They have a limit of 45 people who can come, but if you can, sign up. And on Thursday, we have this really fun thing. I'm not going to go through every single thing, but on Thursday, we have this really fun trip to City Hall where we do this professionalism pledge. And you're going to get dressed up in courtroom attire. If you are not sure what that is, suit, dress, blazer, just basically dress like you're going to court. Because you are going to be dressed up that day, we also have an opportunity for you to take free professional headshots that you can use for your LinkedIn profile or other applications. So you can sign up for those. There's also a sign up link there. And we have those all day. Sorry, I talk really fast. I'm sorry, I'll try to slow down. All right. And then I'm going to stop. D Notes, do you want to add anything before I move on to the checklist?
No, I think you're good.
Okay. All right, so the checklist, as Jay said, you really want to work on those final transcripts. Again, the ABA requires that we get those transcripts with your degree conferral on it in a timely fashion, and they require us to withdraw you from classes if we don't. So please make sure that you are working on getting your final transcripts in with the degree conferral. Sometimes people order them after their final grades come out, but without the degree on them. So just make sure that's on there. Immunization forms are also really, really important, and you have to fill out the actual form that the immunization office gives. You can't just send your medical records. You have to make sure you fill out that form. Otherwise, they're not going to accept it. Well, not you, the doctor has to fill out that form, and make sure you submit that in a timely fashion as well. Otherwise, you will get a hold on your account. You won't be able to register. You won't be able to see your grades, anything like that. So please make sure you're working on that. And I know sometimes it takes a really long time to go find your physician from when you were a kid. So start working on that now if you haven't already. And then the last thing I'll point out is it's a little early for first week assignments. They're not all there. But if you click, and I know we're fixing that typo. But if you click on this review notes on required materials and first week assignments link, which you may have seen already, there's this column that says note on materials. And so you can see, like for legal methods, Professor Coleman said, I recommend that you don't buy the online version of the Blue Book because you're going to use it throughout law school. So you might want to have a hard copy. So before you buy any books, just check on those notes. There's also some notes here about if you're going to be required to purchase anything that's not necessarily a textbook from the bookstore. So in this case, core grammar, there's going to be instructions about how to get that at a discount. So just look at this, even though it's a little early for first week assignments, we do have some notes here. And then I think that is everything that I wanted to show you. How do I close this? Yep, and
Lots
happy
of
to answer any
questions.
questions.
The questions that we're getting the most about are books.
Is books?
Yes.
Sure.
Is it important to get the exact edition of a book?
So I would check out those notes, because usually if the professor is okay with you using an older edition, it will say there. Or they will have ordered an older edition through the bookstore. If you are still not sure or having some trouble, go ahead and reach out to the professor directly and they can let you know.
Okay, great. And this is all related to books. Do we need
Sure.
access codes for books?
That depends on the professor.
Got
So there are some notes about that. Not everyone adds those notes. So again, just reach out to the professor. If it is if it's a list, well, I can't even say that because sometimes the bookstore lists it as a bundle and you can't decouple it, but yeah. So
Got it.
I would reach out to the professor.
Okay. And if I ordered my books to be picked up in the library, can I do that during the week of orientation?
To be picked up at the bookstore?
Most likely that's what they meant.
Okay, yeah, they should be open. And you do have a little bit of break time during orientation where you'll be able to do that. You'll also, I should mention, you'll be able to access your locker assignment the day before orientation. There's a form on that checklist, I think, where I think it's below that. Where you can put in your information and it will send you your locker assignment and your combination where you can store your books. That won't be available until the day before orientation because we obviously don't want to be giving out locker combinations to people who aren't coming. So we do that right beforehand. But yeah, you will have a place to store those books and you will have some time during orientation to go and get books.
Perfect.
And I'll also talk about ebooks. We try really hard to ask the professors and to let the bookstore know if ebooks are not acceptable. And the reasons ebooks would not be acceptable is if during an exam that it's secured and your computer is locked down, you can only use hard copies of materials. So in some cases, exams are closed book and you can't use anything. And so it doesn't matter how you get the textbook. In some cases, you're going to be able to use the textbook, but only in hard copy. So if you have an ebook, then you're going to have to either like go get one on reserve in the library that doesn't have your notes in it or whatever. So just again, check those notes, reach out to the professor. If an ebook is not listed on the bookstore site, it's probably not acceptable. Separate from that, if you have an accommodation where you need electronic materials, that is a totally separate thing.
Got it. Thank you, thank you. And you had mentioned that the required program course will not show up in a student's portal. So when will we know which time we are assigned to for that specific course?
Yep, so Professional Fundamentals is the workshop series we're talking about. It is not a accredited course, it's just a required workshop series. So it doesn't show up on your Drexel One portal. It is based on your methods, on your legal methods section. So I believe if you have afternoon methods, you're going to Professional Fundamentals in the morning, and vice versa. So let me just bring that up again. Yeah, so if you're in legal methods section 1, 3, or 5, you're going to go to Professional Fundamentals at 10:45 on Wednesday. If you're in sections 2 or 4, it's going to be at 2:15 on Wednesday.
Perfect, thank you. There's a question about how does one go about accessing Blackboard?
Blackboard will show up in Drexel One. It'll be listed in a section that says My Courses. That doesn't necessarily mean all your courses, but Generally, Blackboard shells only open the first day of classes. So generally August 19th. The professor can choose to open it earlier at their discretion, but everything will be open at the latest August 19th.
Thank you, thank you. And there's unrelated question about student health insurance that Jacqueline did respond to, but just for the sake of everybody, right, on the call. Is there a student health insurance that is automatically applied to my student account? And can we waive this if we have our own health insurance? And Jacqueline put in.
Yeah, and I put the
so-
link in there that,
Yep.
that you need to go to in order to waive your health insurance. It's through Drexel's United Healthcare portal. It's pretty straightforward. The deadline to waive or enroll in whichever health insurance you opt into is, August 30th. But I would complete that, as soon as you can, just to ensure that it's not added to your tuition bill.
Right,
Yeah, that's right.
absolutely. And if you miss the deadline and fail to waive it, it will be added to your tuition bill and it will not come off. So failure to waive will result in you getting charged. And there's not a
Yes.
whole lot we can do about that. In
That's
fact,
right.
let me take that back. There's nothing we can do about that.
That's right. That's why I wanted to make sure to shout that out. So if anybody on this call, check that link that Jacqueline put into the chat. If you can't find it, let us know. We'll send it to you. But you want to make sure to waive that. There's also the question about confirming whether or not your official final transcripts have been received, and Jacqueline added the lawadmissions@drexel.edu email address there. So for anybody with questions about your transcript, I've already seen emails coming into the inbox during this call, which is amazing. Email us and we'll give you your status. Deans, Gallo and Oates, are books needed by orientation or by the first day of classes?
You should have them by the first day of orientation. Whether you need them or not, it's a slightly different answer.
Right.
You're going to want to start doing the reading before the first day of class. And there will be assigned reading for the first day of, I'm sure, every class. It's not college where you have a syllabus review day on the first day. You jump right in. So I would shoot for having everything on the 12th. That gives you a little bit of buffer to have everything for the 19th.
Perfect, thank you. And there's a question about, in terms of the two fall schedules, how do we know which section we're in?
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up Drexel One so I can show you kind of where to look. But I just need to log in, and obviously I won't have my own schedule.
While Dean Gallo is doing that, let me just reiterate a couple things we've been over, and I apologize if you hear me yowling. It's not me. I've got a very vocal cat at the moment roaming around my house. Anyway, the things that students struggle the most with on that checklist and getting them done, and what's going to cause you to get increasingly unpleasant emails from me are your immunization forms. For some reason, people think that's optional. It is not. It's a public health requirement. Right now, you don't have law school on your plate. You might have other things on your plate, but you don't have it. Get your immunization records now. If you need to call your pediatrician, do it tomorrow. It will take a while. You need to submit those, or I will start emailing you all the time and then calling you into my office saying, why aren't they there? Because you'll end up with a hold on your account. So that has to be done. Students drop that more often than anything else I can think of. The student undergrad transcripts have to be done. That's an ABA rule. So that has to be done, period. The health insurance waiver, again, if you fail to waive it, you bought it, whether you need it or not. So don't wait on those. Those are the three things off the top of my head that are most dropped items by students: the transcript, the immunization forms, and waiving the health insurance. I mean, the non-class things that are dropped. I'm excited for you guys to get into the class stuff. That's great. Try and take care of these administrative stuff before you have all that reading on your plate and all the class things you have to attend to fill up your days. So that's just my checklist for the top priorities, logistical priorities you should be dealing with.
Excellent,
All right.
thanks, thank you.
All right, so let me share this again. So to see your schedule, if you haven't already, It's this checklist item here where it says review schedule on Drexel One and use by Volkslinks. So that should take you to Drexel One. And once you log in, it's gonna look, you get to the welcome screen first. You want to click on where, oh, it's going kind of slow. You want to click on where it says academic, and if you scroll down, it says register for courses, but that's just where you view your schedule. So if you click on register for courses, geez, I am not having good luck here, but it'll say view schedules on the next screen. Once you get to view schedules, you'll see the 4 courses that you're registered for, the 4 required courses that you have to take. And the section number is going to be next to the course number. So for instance, torts says law 550S, that's the course number. And then it'll say 001, 002, or 003. That's the section number. So same thing with legal methods, 001 through 005. That's your section number.
Got it. Thank you so much. Question about, does Drexel give us access to Microsoft Word, Excel, etc.? And if so, how do we access it?
That's a great question for a librarian, or
I guess, right? So once you get your Drexel ID, your Drexel account, you've got Drexel Connect. And so then you have like your OneDrive, right? Do students have all?
yeah, I believe that you do. I believe that you have access to all of that through IT. I think there's like there's a place where it says software downloads for students or something like that.
That's right. And I do have some students that are Drexel students coming in for the incoming class saying that if it does help, you can access it through Drexel email. Like you can go to Outlook and then you can from there get to Excel and the other Microsoft items. So that's probably the best way to do that.
I just want to go back to the professional fundamentals question as well for just for a second. You also are going to get emails about this. So it's Career Strategies Office, who are the ones who oversee that workshop series, will email everyone who's in the different groups and let you know and confirm where you're going and when you're going.
Thank you. And do you know if Drexel provides access to Quimby? It's not a resource that I'm familiar with, but I just wanted to ask you.
No, we do not. And depending on who you talk to, you'll find people advising strongly against things like that. But I know students use it, but it's not a service we provide or access to.
Thank you. And this one, I'm pretty sure I do know the answer to this, but for any parent or guardian that wants to be able to create a login to Drexel One in order to view a student's tuition bill, things like that, would they go through Mary D. Rivera to ask that kind of question to see if that's possible?
Yes, although I don't think it's possible. But Mary would be the one to answer that question. I don't think for graduate level education they have access to third parties to the bill. I think it has to be forwarded to those people. But I can't say that with absolute certainty. Mary could answer that question.
Thank you. And I did throw Mary's information into the chat for anybody that wants that. Mary, again, is our guru of law school financial aid. So please reach out to her, email, phone, super helpful. We have some questions about the City Hall event and whether or not guests are welcome.
I'll handle that one. Officially, no. Right. There's going to be about 120 to 130 of you, I would suspect. And the courtroom is not, and while large, it's not big enough to seat multiple guests from everybody. I don't expect that multiple people want to take guests. We're also not going to throw your guests out if they arrive. So, if your loved ones wants to show up and take a couple pictures with you, that's fine. But I'd like to not have 120 to 130 people bring multiple guests, because that would create a problem. So officially, no, with whatever caveat you just heard from me.
Excellent, thank you. Question about parking permits and if we know roundabout where to get those and when they go on sale.
Yeah, there's a Drexel. If you Google Drexel parking, there should be I'll try and do it right now and see if I can share it. There is a semester-based parking thing. So let me see if I can find it. If you go to Drexel, I just Googled Drexel parking. I got the parking permit rates, Center City, and then let me find out. Get or renew a permit. I'm way down the list here, and then permit rates. I'm going to find a semester one, I promise. Yeah, there's a semester rate there. So it's all through the website, which is easy. I could give you the whole URL. But,
Professor Coleman just dropped the link in the chat. So
all right, way ahead of me. There you go. Thank you, Professor Coleman.
Thank you. Yep, and I'm just sharing with somebody another link for an unrelated question. Do students have access to subsidized parking transport passes? I believe they do. I think SEPTA, it gives a discounted pass for Drexel students. Is that right? I can see Dean Gallo.
yeah, you can, it's through, if you go to Drexel one where I was just showing you the schedule, I think it's on like the campus and community tab. It's the SEPTA Compass program. I think you have to order it like a month in advance, so just go and check it out there.
Yeah, I get the sense there aren't a lot of questions for me, so I'm gonna hop off unless anyone has a question about civil procedure or professor stuff.
Same as to contracts.
I have several contracts and Cipro questions, but I'll hold on to them until I see you guys.
Same as for legal methods. I'll see you guys. I'll see my international students August 5th. I'll see the rest of you August 12th for reading and briefing cases.
You're welcome, guys. See you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for
The
joining
same for
us.
torts. I already have my parking pass, so.
Well, we're using your spot when you're not around, Rob.
No problem, as long as it's someone in my class.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, and for those of us that remain, so you have your student affairs team, you've got your admissions team here. This is your time. We don't need to stay on the call long if a lot of you folks have gotten your questions answered, but we're happy to answer any remaining questions. So please, you can raise your hand if you have a question, or you could throw it into the chat. But let us know if there's anything else that you wanted to go over before we end today's call. And you're going to see in the chat, Dean Gallo put her contact information. So if you have any follow-up questions about anything that Dean Gallo went over this evening, you can email her directly. Questions that I've seen coming through about the loan process and about financial aid, all of that is definitely Mary D. Rivera. So check out where I put Manager of Law School Financial Aid, Mary D. Rivera. Her telephone number is there, her email address is there. Mary is a tremendous resource. And I would say, even if you think you have all the things done that you believe you should have done, I would just confirm it with her before the start of classes, just to make sure that you're in good shape.
You know, business casual, I guess, or casual, not above business casual, certainly.
We just say don't wear pajamas. Yeah.
Huh?
Don't wear pajamas, but
People show up to class in pajamas. But
That's
orientation is somewhat about first impressions with your classmates and your professors and your administrators. So I might dress a little bit nicer for orientation. But, you know, it's a casual law school. People aren't wearing suits to class and stuff like that. Some people are wearing pajamas. And I'm, you know, not me, even though I'm not teaching you any of your classes this semester. So, but yeah, City Hall is a, you know, a business attire, a courtroom attire, because you will literally be in court in front of a judge. So we want you to look like you understand what that means.
let me mention if anyone is maybe relocating, doesn't have, or, you know, just otherwise does not have courtroom attire, we do have something called the Klein Closet. And you can email Dean Danielle Bordley to get access to it. I'll put her email here in the chat.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay, I'll jump in then. Dean Gallo saying if you're moving here just made me think of something else. If you're on some kind of medication regimen and you don't have a local doctor, please set that up. And you're going to need a prescription filled soon after you get here. please, please take care of that. All too many students don't take care of it. And then again, they find themselves overwhelmed with the schedule of law school and they don't get to it. And, you know, depending on your situation, your condition and your medication, not taking your medication is sometimes a bad idea. And that can catch up to people pretty quickly. So again, you don't have any of this, other than that checklist, you don't have a daily law school obligation. So take care of all these little things now. I urge you to, because law school will snowball and the time it'll suck all your time out those first several weeks. And so take care of what you can now, if possible. Although, you know, as Dean Gallo indicated, orientation, thankfully, is not every day, all day. So if you need to have, you know, somebody set up cable at your new apartment or something like that, you can schedule around that. But try and take care of all the little logistical things that you're going to need to be comfortable, including medication, other things ahead of time. Or if you need a new primary care physician, a new therapist, any of that, try and set that up before law school starts. Let's put it that way.
That's right. And I know we threw a ton of information at all of you this evening. So just a reminder, I don't think I mentioned it actually at the top of the call, that this evening's session was recorded. So we're going to share the recording with all of you. So please go back through all this information. You can jot down additional questions, reach out to us with those questions. The last question that we had come through was regarding specifically somebody's Drexel email account. We're going to reach out to you because I know that you're just getting started on getting those accounts set up. So we'll make sure that you've got your account set so you can check it. I want to thank my colleagues that are on the call this evening. Dean Oates, Dean Gallo, our friends here on the admissions team. We are just so excited to get to meet you all in the next few weeks. Please take advantage over this next couple of weeks. Reach out if you have questions of things, but enjoy your time. Enjoy the next couple of weeks before you start law school. And we can't wait to see you at orientation on Monday the 12th. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thanks, everyone.